without further ado, it's my privilege, pleasure, and honor to ask Harav Minkowitz to be mamshech, and I see he has over there the Tavshin Lamed Gimel Hagadah there too. He's going to be mamshech and talk about Pesach, and there's a lot of stories about this. And without further ado, Harav Minkowitz. Rabbi Minkowitz also experienced this many things firsthand, so it's a big schus for us to hear it, and it's always a big thing to hear Rabbi Minkowitz relive these inyanim. It's like you're there. It's not just like you could be there. If you write now, the Rebbe writes, you could be at a place, if you close your eyes, you could be there. But Rabbi Minkowitz, he's going to take you there right now.
First of all, about the Nigundim, is tomorrow we start saying Hallel. So that's a special Nigun. It's a Nigun, Achim Tilim, Gimel. The Mamish is with Hallel HaGodel. The coming of Mashiach, V'korev Mamish. Also, Tovshin Chav Beis, Shnas HaShishim. So then Rabbi Dubov from England was there, and he got up and he sang on the capital Samach Aleph, Yomim Melech Tosef, from England. Not the regular Nigun. I gemacht an anderen, gemacht eigenen. It was by the Shabbos Verbringen, and he got up and he sang a Nigun. This is how it is. Also, it mentioned before about the Haggadahs that was printed in Tavshin Vov, the first Haggadah, the first Chibur the Rebbe made, and the Rebbe's name was there. Later it came out again, Tavshin Tezvov, it came out again, and it came out with his Sofis, and then it came out again, Tavshin Chav Gimel, as was mentioned before. This is what the Haggadah looked like. So today it's hard to get these Haggadahs. Rebbe Zev had the Haggadah of Tavshin Vov. This is the Haggadah of Tavshin Chav Gimel. The Rebbe had this Haggadah at the Seder, Tavshin Chav Gimel, I remember. And I remember also, you see the red letters over here. They gave the Rebbe an addition. The red letters are put on later. So at the Seder, the Rebbe had the Haggadah without the letters. It just said Im. The word Im was printed. But the red letters were not there. Haggadah Shal Pesach. Makuta time in Minhagim.
Those days, the print color, you had to put it through the machine.
A double process. In nicht einzige Zeiten. And also, in those days, the computer age and the typesetting, etc., won't go into all the arichas, the difficulties of printing in those days. So the Haggadah looked like this, which means the right page was a page from the Torah Seder, directly a photo, offset photocopy of the Torah Seder. The Rebbe's Biyurim were always on the left side, except sometimes it added up. It's like over here, so there was a lot of Biyurim. It went 2 pages across, and then the next page again was on the right side and the left side. Now, it's obviously the Rebbe didn't write his Pirushim exactly makbil to the amount of words that are on the right side. So many times it went over it. In other words, if you had to look for something here, it could be on the next page or on the previous page, because it was a full page here and a full page there. So it's very, very difficult, b'shas to say that if you wanted to follow what was going on, it was a difficult thing. We'll get to that in a second. But Tavshin Tezvov, there was a sophist that came out like this, Hashmotis. The original Haggadah was like a page here. When it came out Tezvov, the Rebbe wanted to add. Today, it's just with a computer, you just enter it where you want, and the page moves up. In those days, everything stayed the same. So the original pages is Tavshin Vov pages. Anything that was added later was added over here, and also by the last page. It says, Hesofel, Haggadah Shal Pesach, Mukutim, Minhagim, the Taimim. So over here was added a number of pages at the end. And then Tavshin Chav Gimel was added a whole page over here, and every single thing that was added had to do with the Alter Rebbe. Like starting Hilchas Pesach was in the first Hoyer Rishonis Shenitfesu. So it was specifically, it's no direct Shaykhas L'Chure with the Haggadah Shal Pesach, but it was put in specifically Tavshin Chav Gimel. Again, we don't understand the Al Inyonim, can ich verstehen. I'll just mention by the Kinos HaShluchim this year, they asked me to speak about the Mashiach Sefer Torah. I gave a PowerPoint presentation. I gave a Hagdome, and I mentioned that I'm ofek sagen, as me versteht, Punkt wie Ahon im Bnei Odom. That you understand, wie Ahon im Bnei Odom. What's Ahon im Bnei Odom? Ahon im Bnei Odom is that Erev Yom Kippur shlokt men kaporis. Mishlok kaporis, we say Bnei Odom yesh v'chesh of Salmovis. And you have Ahon, you have the rooster twisting around your head. And the Hon is looking into the Seder together with you. So it says, the Hon, that's how much we understood being about the Rebbe, around the Rebbe. So anything we say, I'll just tell you what it is, and the Pirushim, everybody can learn themselves. But in the Tovshin Tezvav edition, the Rebbe added an amazing thing that's printed over here. And the Rebbe added from a Siche from your Aleph Nissen Tovshin Tes. And it was printed also in Sefer HaMamorim in the Kuntras that came out, Hagadah Pesach Tovshin Tes. It came out in that Kuntras, and it says there, Al Pipkudas, Gbeit Gvushas Meid Rechamat Mushalita from the Friedrich Rebbe, to add the Hisofis, and one of the Hisofis was the Hisofer was also the Siche of your Aleph Nissen Tovshin Tes. Now there was no Fabrenga in your Aleph Nissen Tovshin Tes. It was a Yechidus that the Rebbe had. And the last Yechidus that the Rebbe had by the Friedrich Rebbe, your Aleph Nissen. Huh? Oh, okay. Almost gelernt, we from Rabbi Elechazeh. All right, that's from Rabbi Kazanovsky. In any case, he was told that not to the Rebbe. Okay, that's the Vater von Wissen. Almot mir gelernt that this is a Yechidus that the Rebbe had, and it's also the last Yechidus, and it's interesting that the Rebbe mentions over there, it's a pnimius and atzmistic word that is given over me Rebbe le Rebbe. It's given over me Rebbe le Rebbe, and that part is printed over here also. You saw about Kazanovsky? Yeah, good. Kabbalah in the Kabbalah. Since the Hagadah looked this way, so Tovshin Lamed Gimel, which was the Siyum of Shnas Hashivim, I was then in Keilel, finishing off the second year in Keilel, and Chavri HaKeilel were also involved then in the printing, Kutesichas, etc. So we decided to give a matana to the Rebbe, the Hagadah. But the Hagadah should be a Hagadah where properly, meaning they should be able to find the things that every page should have the biurim ashaychas directly to that page. So some pages have to be smaller of the Hagadah, some pages have to be bigger, etc. And some problems came around that the size, a technical thing, the size of this, the width of this page is not the same as with this page. This page is wider. Das ante Sach. So even that was the Rebbe, that asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe didn't say to enlarge the page. Leave the page as is, and in order that it should look, say the Mesuder, the Rebbe said to add a frame. To add a frame, this is the Hagadah that we all have today. Everybody knows this Hagadah. It's been reprinted many, many times. So this is the first time it was printed in such a way. So you can see the biurim are over here, and over here it's a shorter page, it's longer. And the Rebbe said to make a ramkid, which is like a frame, that it should, and the Rebbe even chose it. There was a few frames given in. The Rebbe chose this frame to make this frame. Once it was made, we added all the Hisofis, which I did most of the job over here to find all the letters, the Michtavim Klolim and the Sichas and letters before the Igros Kedish came out. Pasha to dig up a lot of letters. We went to Rabbi Mentlik Olav Hasholem, who used to learn the Rebbe's Michtav Kloli. Rebbe's uncle used to learn the Michtav Kloli, Be'iyun Rav, and he had Shilas later. He gave it into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answered. So he had mamish little zetla from the Rebbe. So we added him on the bottom of the letters. It might say Hisofa Lachazman, and that's where it comes from. It comes from the answers that were given mostly to Rabbi Mentlik, and then all the other things that came to our possession, some letters at that time that was somehow received or reached us from Rabbi Zevin Olav Hasholem, Ksaviat Kodesh, Yonim Bad Hagadah. Now we have two letters. Then we only had one. We had printed one letter. And in any case, this is the sefer that came out, Lekovid Yeralef Nissen Tovshin Lamed Gimel. When it was brought into the Rebbe, Binyamin Klein brought it into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was very, very happy. So finally, a sefer that the Hagadah is, say the Mesuder, that you can actually find the Pirushim directly on the page. And the Rebbe opened up. I heard this from Binyamin. He said the Rebbe looked at this page, the front page, and the Rebbe looked at the last page. The last page finished off with a hadran. The Rebbe made Shnas Hashishim. Shnas Hashishim, the Rebbe made a hadran on Masechet Psochim, but Pidyon Haben, who's Mevorich, etc. He makes the Shechiyonu. The Rebbe was crying a lot by that Fabrengen. And the Rebbe gave a look right away. The Rebbe said that the last word, the last ha'oreh finishes off with the words, Tzayre Diyanuke. That's what it says here. The Rebbe said, you finish a sefer with Tzayre Diyanuke. Could you imagine? The Rebbe opened the first page, last page, and the Rebbe said it was given in at night. So the Rebbe said at night they should still try to add something. So middle of the night, we finally got some stamps, and every single sefer was stamped, as you can see over here. It says L'shona haba b'Yerushalayim. The Rebbe with a stamp. Every single, it was already printed already. All the svarim were printed, and the Rebbe asked that we should add the words L'shona haba b'Yerushalayim. Also, I want to mention when we speak about the Seder, when we were children, young Bachrim, we knew that Akaira, as the Rebbe writes in the Minhagim, and it's taken from the Hagadah, Beis Harav Mesad Namatz Mapa V'lei Al Kaira, not on a Kaira. Movado Ad Mur Mesad Namatz Al Tashel Kesef. So only the Rebbe is Mesader on the Kaira. So everybody knew that you're not Mesader the matzahs on the Kaira. That's how the Minhag Chabad was based on what says in the Hagadah. Then Tovshin Chavov, the Sefer HaMinhagim was being put together, Tovshin Chavov. And in those days, they didn't even have photocopies. It was very difficult to get. I remember we used to have to get if you gone to someplace like Savyad, we had to run to Manhattan, and I remember the address, 1 Liberty Street, on Wall Street, near the World Trade Center. It wasn't built even then. And it was hard to get a copy. So when the Rebbe was Magia, certain things, they actually sent the Ksav Yad Kodesh to the printer. And it came back smudged, dirty with the print. It wasn't like today. It was mamish print with ink, schmutzig. And many times, this was in the summer punkts, I was there. So I remember I went to Ramesh Zaklokovsky, the label Groner, gave us the Ksav Yad Kodesh to bring to Balsham Printing on Sutter Avenue. Now you know where it is. If you take the train, there's a number of stops, Heintes and Hans Schwarzer Gegend in East New York. And we had mamish the Minhagim, the Sefer Minhagim there. So in many Yonim, on the way, we did find some place to make a photocopy. It was white on black. It wasn't so easy. It was the reverse. But we stopped. Once we had the Ksav Yad Kodesh in our hands, we had to deliver it. We couldn't steal it for Pesach. But on the way, we made a detour, and we did. So I remember seeing that the Rebbe wrote a Hagadah. The Hagadah is printed. The Ule Rak Al Shulchan Ad Mur Yesh Lases came to have. There shouldn't be a kaira. Then the Rebbe wrote Reshimas and 3 dots, 3 pintelach, which means to fill in Kveit Kedushad Mushalita. And that's how it's printed. But the Rebbe didn't write Kedushad Mushalita. The Rebbe wrote Reshimas. I saw it, I was holding it in my hand. I think they even have a copy of it someplace printed now also in some Sforim. They did also get hold of the copy. They printed it up. So this is just a little bit about the Hagadah. And again, the Rebbe used, by the Seder, the Rebbe used this Hagadah, and also the Rebbe had the Seder Arizal from the Pshapsi, the Ashkever, the Shash, that he looked in on a regular basis. But I'll get to that in a second. Just machen bekitzer, just give a little bit of a feel of what happened, the Marum from Pesach, the Marum from Aleph Nisan, etc. Erev Pesach, the Rebbe used to give out matzahs, and every person, Yidden came from all over New York City, Al-Chassidim, came to receive a piece of matzah from the Rebbe. The Rebbe used to wish Makosh for Elohim Pesach, the Rebbe Baruch the Rebbe gave. And the matzah was baked Erev Pesach, was Erev Pesach the matzahs. So the Tana Rishon, the Rebbe used to take for himself. I remember one year they said that somehow the Tana Rishon was very, very hot, and almost all the matzahs got burnt, and the Rebbe basically had very little for Pesach, just Kamet Sodas had for the Zdorim. And the rest of the matzahs was used to be given out for people who stood online and they got matzahs. And those Bachrim who were in charge of it, who took care, make sure those elder Bachrim took care of it. Now, Bementlik was the Mefakeach Kloli and the whole thing. He was up a whole night to making sure everything was kasham. Those Nur Bementlik was a Daikim Beyeser, a Frumerid Betachlis, Weistach. But im Snagen nicht call him a Tzadik, he call him a Beiner is a große Sache. Mama is a Frumerid Betachlis. And Maim Shalonu was the night before. So Maim Shalonu, the Rebbe used to go to the hill, it was mentioned before, Yud Gimel Nissen. And the later years, the Rebbe used to come back, as we know, the Rebbe came back way after the Shkia, Bechulu, and Maim Shalonu has to be done this Monday. So, but in those days, as strange as it may seem, the Rebbe used to come on time, Derech Klal. One was a balabatish atam, again, I don't know, but the reality was, and to everyone's shock, that you may be shocked to hear this, that at the Ohel there was no lights whatsoever. The Rebbe stood in the dark. If it was a dark day, a cloudy day, the Rebbe stood in the dark. If it was a rainy day, the Rebbe got soaked. There was no cover, there was no gag, there was no heating, there was no air conditioning, zero. Alle gedenken that today it's hard to imagine such a thing. Agaburg, the Rebbe used to bring like that outside also. And the shalash was also the selbe Sache. But Pashtus, when it got dark, getting darker, so the Rebbe used to leave. And also the Rebbe, it seems, in those days was more, Akaponim, the Shkia, tried to daven mincha by the Shkia. There's at least one case that I know that the Rebbe stopped in a gas station on the way to daven mincha. And one time he stopped even, like I mentioned before, the Balshan printing and Mordechai Shustum and the printing. My Shver used to work there. So once he was working there and he saw that the Rebbe walked in. So what's going on over here? Guys were sitting by the line of type machines, and the Rebbe walks in, and it's on the way from the Ohel. There's a street called Sutter Avenue. He passed by there and was getting the Shkia. So daven mincha over there. Daven mincha in the Zach upon him. The Rebbe used to come back basically for Maim Shalonu. Most years was there on time. Maim Shalonu was, today was the Sukkah is. They used to pull a pipe from the basement. There was no mayan like which they had later. I'm talking before Tavshchav Ches. So they took just a regular pipe, the regular city water, and they pulled the pipe, and the Rebbe went out to the Chotzer, which today is the Sukkah, and the same procedure. You've seen videos of that. Later on, when they dug the kval for Tashlich, which is, as you know, it's in the driveway near the Rebbe's library. So from there, they also schlepped water for Maim Shalom. And Sanki Eliyata, v'chulu v'chulu. After Maim Shalom, after Ma'ariv, was Mechiras Chometz. Mechiras Chometz used to take place. Rabbi Shmuel Levitin, Rabbi Shalom, he was the Rav that the Rebbe sold the Chometz all the years till he passed away, Tov Shalom Medalet. And one time, I was in 770, it was night of Dikas Chometz, everybody empties out. A bocher was hanging around the Mr. 70. It was very, very empty. And I was standing in the hallway. And was like, how can I chainik with another bocher? And I see Reb Shmuel came out of the Rebbe's room. Reb Shmuel's room. Reb Shmuel used to sleep and eat and live in 770, which today is known as the Yichud room, and also the library of the Bochrim in the Zal, the last, all the way behind the Cheder Sheni. There's a Sifriya, a library for the Bochrim. That used to be his bedroom. And the Yichud room used to be his kitchen, his dining room, and living room, all combined in one. And that's where he lived. So he went back to his room. And we're still going back to Chainik in the hallway. Mitamol, I see the Rebbe's rushing down the hallway. Mamish rushing, walking very, very fast. Very rare to see the Rebbe walking fast. Very, very rare. And the Rebbe walks down very fast down the hallway, and we moved to the side, and the Rebbe was like talking to himself, and he says, "Ike shachachti." Just when he passed by, I was standing with another bocher, "Ike shachachti." I think it was Levi Shapiro, if I'm not mistaken, standing together and talking, and he went all the way to the Shmuel's room, and then he went back. And we had to find out what's the Ike shachachti. What's Ike shachachti? So we went to the Shmuel, and we said, "What happened over here?" So they said that the Rebbe didn't give him money for Mechiras Chometz. The money, Harav, you have to get money. All the Rabbanim should know about this. Okay. The people, the Rabbanim should know this. Hang up the story. They should know. Mechiras Chometz, I'm getting my per dollar. This was Samatov Shalamed, I think it was. What? And next day was the burning of the Chometz, Reif of Chometz, that took place in the boiler room. Today you have no access after Parshas Asfarim. Everything was locked up over there, so the furthest you can get is till the elevator. After the elevator, you made a left. Where the door is now, there was no door, and you made a left all the way down to the boiler room. And over there, the Rebbe used to burn the Chometz. In those days, there wasn't a lot of pushing or whatever, so you were able to go down. And the Rebbe used to have a big iron pole to spread out the Chometz, to spread out in a way, and it should all burn out properly. And then, in the afternoon, was the Chalukas HaMatzos. I remember, this is Tovshin Chav Hey, Also, I was walking down Kingston Avenue. It was somewhere around 2:30, 3 o'clock. I said, I'll go on 770 for a minute, see what's happening. So I go on, there's nobody there. And I go near the Rebbe's room. I see that the Rebbe's door is open. The door to the Rebbe's room is open. And I see the Rebbe standing by the side of his table, his desk, wearing a sutuk, was Erev Shabbos then, and saying, the Seder was open, he was saying, Heidun Paschalio. And inside, I remember it was Noske Wolf, einer von the ältere Bochrim in those days, in Nachal Zachabad, and another few Bochrim who were Masada the Matzahs. They just came back from the bakery. They just finished the baking to give out for Chalukas HaMatzahs out of Pesach. And they were inside, Masada, so the Rebbe should be able to, but meanwhile, the Rebbe was saying, Heidun Paschalio. So it was a nice sight to see. The door was open this much. I was able to see inside the room. So I wait around, what's happening over here? After a few minutes, the Bochum, they came out, and right behind them comes the Rebbe. And Chav, hey, the Rebbe daven for the Yomit. And the Rebbe is going into the Zal upstairs, and is going to the Yomit. There's only one problem. There's, I don't know how it's now. In those days, once a year, they painted 770. I don't know if they still do it now, basically. They painted. So maybe the Bochum are cleaner today. They don't have to paint, basically. Then in those days, once a year, covered Pesach. So this is Mamish Erev Pesach. So all the Sforim were on the tables, and the Sidurim and the Chumoshim and Sforim and everything was on the Omid. The Omid, the Rebbe had to daven, was like this, piled high to the sky, as they say, all the way up. And the Rebbe's coming in. There wasn't even a minyan. There was maybe 7, 8 people there together with the box and myself. And the Rebbe's coming over. You couldn't even get over. I couldn't put down the Seder. So I ran over. I think Shlomo Kunya was on the other side before he went on Shlichus, and we started taking over the Sforim. And then underneath was candles. You had to put the candles on. So the Rebbe had to move back a little bit. We put the candles down, 5 candles. He was putting the candles. I was lighting the matches. Somebody ran downstairs. They found a bocher still dry azege mit apart film. They don't take off your film. We need you for a minyan. Okay, so he came upstairs with marshalling the minyan, and then the Rebbe. As soon as we finished, by the way, the Rebbe is interessant. The Rebbe said, "Yashukeyach, Yashukeyach." I was standing on one side, Shlomo Kunya on the other side. Every little thing that he did for the Rebbe said, "Yashukeyach." Held the door open for the Rebbe. Yashukeyach. Then the Rebbe pointed, I remember, with his finger like this, because right near the Omid is the door. You know what I'm talking about? You know, there's a door on the right side of the Omid. In those days, there's a Beis HaKised, I don't think it's used there, Beis HaKovid, that's over there. And in the later years, they made a door from the corridor itself, from the hallway itself. There's a door before you go into that little area that had 3 doors. The middle door was the Beis HaKised. On the right side was in our days, we used to call it the Tzachzimmer, Reb David's room. Hagadah Chabad started and continued for many, many years in that little room, which was as big as Rabbi Chadakov's office. Okay, Dalar al Dalar Mamish, based off Saganta Shalach, and Milcha Shabbos, don't know how big it is. Okay, so but it was open. So if that door was open, it was open straight to the door of the Beis HaKised. So the Rebbe went to this, and we knew that the Rebbe was Mahader, that should be closed. So the Rebbe pointed with his finger. So I ran quickly, and I closed the door, and common to us, we got a minyan. And then the Rebbe, when they finished, the Stille Shvanessa, the Rebbe asked, send us some gedabent. It seems there's other times also, in Kanamokim, the Rebbe was Mahader, it should be 10, even though the Rebbe writes Bavusta Brief as the Alter Rebbe writes, Areze Communion Gomel, and the Alter Rebbe got greater places, v'chulu. It seems when the Rebbe down for the Omid, it was Mahader, it should be Mamish, Mamish 10 people. In any case, then went Chalukas HaMatzahs. It took a long, long time. In the earlier years, there wasn't so many people, and it went pretty fast. Later on, it took many, many hours. I remember that we were the first group that went to Australia. We came back. Okay, all right. We came back before Pesach, and we're waiting online. I think it was like Old Time. Abraham Old Time was standing on line with everybody else. So the Rebbe said, "Wo sind die alle anderen Shluchim?" So they got everybody else together, and the Rebbe gave each one of us a whole matzah, which was very unusual. Anoshim Yochadim used to get a whole matzah. This was something special, but the Rebbe did from Shlichus was something very, very special. They got a whole matzah, and the line went mamish kamatel l'shkia, to the extent that later on, after Ma'ariv, many people didn't get, so a few people came over to ask the Rebbe if they can get after Ma'ariv. Before you knew it, it became already a minig Yisrael, that many people, maybe Chatchila came after Ma'ariv, Versparan sagt wait online, but whatever it is, it went all the way. After Ma'ariv, yeah. And not Ma'ariv, because many people went till after Ma'ariv also. After Ma'ariv and after the Chalukya at night, the Rebbe used to go to the Bochrim in 676. You don't know what 676 is? Thanks for sure. 676 Eastern Parkway is between Brooklyn and New York. That used to be the yeshiva, the dormitory, and the Bochrim Yistit. The Rebbe used to go there and watch the Seder, how the Bochrim make the Kayr, etc. And then the Rebbe used to say a perverter. He used to walk it always into the kitchen to see the Babusta famous cook, Musya Nemoiten, used to tell her Gut Yontif, says she cooked a whole year for free to get that Gut Yontif from the Rebbe. Okay, there's many times things came up, and once came up a whole shaila about the mezuzah on the right side or the left side, a certain door, according to Heketzir, Rebbe Ganz Enkan Amokim, I think it was already written how to Mimim about it, b'chulu. So this...
Later on, it was in this building where we are right now, the Rebbe used to come up with this door, it's right upstairs.
In 1440. 749
also, and then later than that.
But I remember also the Rebbe went with the Keilulis.
Yeah.
But the Rebbe went with the Keilulis.
Yeah.
What? The Bochrim made the 1 year. 1 year, some Ben Hashmoshes. So the Bochrim were to eat, so they ate with today's the Keilu. Then used to call it the Faratz, the Farban, whatever name it had in those days. And the Rebbe, I remember they put up lights all the way up, also a lot of steps to go up. And later years, the Rebbe went to Machan, that was afterwards. Went to Machan Chana, and they went to Hadarat Torah, and then to Free, and the Russians, and Yetzei Poras, when the Iranians came for the Bochum set, for the girls separate, v'chulu. And all this took a long time, obviously. And by the time the Rebbe started to say, it was quite late. So as soon as the Rebbe left the yeshiva, the Bochum, those Bochum wanted to get to be by the Rebbe Seder, to be the mamish on time. So they made mamish as they express. The Israelis sagen express. They made it express. We gemacht 1, 2, 3, and they came to Meitzi Matzah, Keirich, Shulchan Eirich was you eat the egg, and then was the Afikaman right after that. Okay. So and then später came nach den Straßen, and they used to get the Baruch Hashem to mamish to the beginning of before the Rebbe came in, because it was open to everybody, but it wasn't a big crowd. You have to understand, in those days, Lubavitch here in Crown Heights and Chlauber, it was very, very small, the Fierich, and Jungelite were busy at home, and even Bochum who ate at home, etc. But later on, the later years, it became a little bit more, because it was two kvutzes, one kvutz after the other, etc., etc. So they're able to make it by the Seder. Now, I mentioned before the Rebbe used this Hagadah the Rebbe used, and Tavshuch of Gimel, when the Rebbe uses Hagadah, the Rebbe mentioned, I think he told Rebbe Zalman Duchman, that he's going to make sure to say the Hagadah a little bit louder. The Rebbe said the Hagadah, you couldn't hear a word, basically, till the first part. The first part they couldn't hear. All ben Hagadah, everything's written up right. The Rebbe used to read every single part, v'chulu, and the Morah the Rebbe used to eat mamish. Many times it's coughing. Rebbe mamish a shtickle Morah. Besides, to squeeze out the Morah, all the juice came out. A shtick mamish, the size mamish like an egg. There's a piece of Morah, hard Morah, which wasn't even ground. Many things you should hear the Rebbe coughing from the Chilas Morah, and the matzah also took quite a while. They eat the matzah, and the Rebbe said that he's going to say it a little bit louder. So the second part of the Seder was quite loud, and most years was that way anyway. After Shvei Chamoscha, the Rebbe said mamish ba'aved every single. In the beginning, he said very fast. The second part was very, very slow, with veikis, with a nigen. Every single word that they can't hear jeden word what the Rebbe said. And since it's the first night, and since the Rebbe came very late, because of mentioned before, after Chaluk Zamatzah and the Bikur and the Meizdas, as they say in Teuchat Mim v'chulu, so you have to eat came before Chatzos, and there was no watch or clock in the room except a little tiny clock that was on a thermostat. The thermostat was this big, the clock was this big. Remember a number of times, but by the way, the Frierdiker Rebbe's place was, the chair was there. They used to put a board on the table, because the table that they have, many of you maybe have been in the room. I went in there the first time I went, and after that I said, it doesn't look normal. This table looks small. I asked him, so Ber Levin, it's the same table? It's the same table. I said, can't be, because so many people sit around. He said they used to put a board on top of the table, because that had a minion sitting around the table. So the Rebbe used to ask, many times I stood behind the Rebbe, it was Meir Harlech, Member Shmotkin, and the Rebbe turned around. Wie viele das sagen? Look, I was a younger bacher, I don't want to stick my nose in. So, Meir Harlech's others, they used to run over on the side. They used to say it's 12 minutes to 12, you know, or 12 minutes to 1, depending when the Chatzos was. If they changed the clock, didn't change the clock. So, so right away, the Rebbe didn't start eating till everybody received a portion. And as soon as the Rebbe stopped eating, they all had to stop. So the Rebbe used to take, by the way, the fish the Rebbe ate was full of salt. Like you couldn't even see the fish. Salt covered the whole thing, from top to the whole top. And later on, the chicken, before the chicken, there was a yurk, you mentioned a yaichel, there was a soup that was served in a big bowl from the Alter Rebbe. It's a thing that they have by Yerusha from the Alter Rebbe, that some things they had that got lost, it seems, but this, the mamish, came from this man of the Alter Rebbe, and the Rebbe used to take three big spoons and put it into his plate, and everybody else took it the same way. And the Rebbe used to eat, but the Rebbe many times ate just a little bit, some they ate nothing, to go quick, and everybody had to stop. People by the Seder many times went away Pashut hungry, so he wanted to eat, you had to eat something out of Pesach, because he went away Pashut hungry. There was once a Maisi, a guy, he wrapped up in a napkin, he wrapped up a chicken, and he put it in his pocket. The Rebbe even saw it. The Rebbe looked at him. Especially after Africa, you can't eat anyway. This is even on a regular yontif, it was a problem. But the Rebbe stopped eating, they stopped eating, and then the Afrikaman, soon they said it's 5 minutes, 5 minutes. So the Afrikaman had to start, and had to start right away. And the Rebbe had it between two pillows, that on the chair next to him. Nobody sat the Haseva. Rashag had a little pillow, but he was never masive. And just the Rebbe was masive. He took out from the Afrikaman. Now, das man ist kurz. Macht ein bisschen just bekitzer. Has to mention also about Tovshin Chavtes. Between the two pillows. On the chair next to the Rebbe sat on one chair. Next to the Rebbe was another chair, and the back was this way, like this. The back was this way. There was two pillows. In between the two pillows, I think it says the Loshen. Bein Nakarim. That's what it says, the Loshen. That's how the Rebbe used to keep it. He used to break it into 5 pieces. The alle Sachen sind alles gedruckt. And it's in the Menhogim, and that's where it took out the Afrikaman. Tovshin Chavtes, as mentioned before, we came back from Australia then, and we came to the Seder, and one of the Shluchim, the Rebbe Kaplan of Asholem, was standing right behind the Rebbe, and the Rebbe turned around and asked, Shigasnam Afrikaman. So he moved away. He didn't know who the Rebbe was talking to. So the Rebbe said, Ich mein dir, Kaplan, Shigasnam Afrikaman. So he said, yes. You have to tell the truth. Yes, finished. That's it. The Rebbe didn't say anything. The next day, we figured, if the Rebbe asked, and the second day of Frat is nicht kein Problem. Besser nicht essen Afrikaman. You can always take the Afrikaman in your pocket. You can drink eine ganze Nacht, and essen eine ganze Nacht. So that's what we did. We washed, and in the house we washed. We had a Meinl Chatchil at the bench in 770. And he took along the Afrikaman, and our cases felt nicht Baruch Hashem, the Kule Mashke in 770, felt nicht kein Wein dort. So take care of it. So again, the Rebbe turned around and asked again if he gets an Afrikaman. So this time he said, that nicht gegessen Afrikaman. So the Rebbe took from his Afrikaman, that's laying by him in the bag that the Rebbe had, the Afrikaman, on the napkin, and he added matzah from the table, some more matzah. there was five. One of the shluchim, one of the bachim was not there. They went to eat. They lived in the Bronx. So they went into the Bronx, but five were there, and the Rebbe gave each one. The Rebbe gave from the Afikeima, and the Rebbe said that they have to sit down. So the Rebbe said they should bring 5 chairs around the table. There's no this lemtish, 5 chairs, Hagadah, and cases, and to make sure that they have the arbor cases and the wine, etc., whatever they need, and the Afikeima and v'chulu. And the Rebbe looked a few times to pushing, but that time was already pretty tough. And basically, you had to sit on a chair. People wanted to stand. Little by little, we were basically pushed out as a little by little, further and further. So the Rebbe looked, and then right away it came back. As soon as the Rebbe looked, everything had to come back. And this was Agavurcha. The first night of Pesach that year, Toshchav Tes, was tremendous pushing. And there was such pushing that the bottle of wine poured out on the table, and the Rebbe watched it, the Rebbe looked at it, I was very unhappy. So the next day, it was given over in the name of the Maskirus that the Bochrim should not come in, because what happened last night, nobody should come in, but then they decided that the Kvutze, the Bochrim, that's the Solike Bochrim, they should come in because they're going away, etc., so they should come in. So the Bochrim were allowed to come in, and the Rashag asked for them, and we came to the door, and the door was locked. You come to the side door, the middle steps. Today they have a gate over there after Parshas Asforim. But then you're able to go upstairs. You knock on the door, ended up in the kitchen, and to go in and knocking on the door, nobody opens the door. Then one of the Bachrim was in the Kfutzi, he came in, so I told him to ask, maybe Rashak could ask the Rebbe if the Shluchim that came from Australia, they can go in. So Rashak asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, Avada, what's the Shaila? What's the question? So right away they let us in, and then this thing that I mentioned before was what the Rebbe said. What the Rebbe said was about Afikemen was then. Also by that Seder, the Rebbe said, we're saying Hal Lagadol, Heidul Hashem, Kitev, Ki Le'olam Chazdei. The Rebbe said it 3 times. Heidul Hashem, Kitev, Ki Le'olam Chazdei. 3 times. He said it like this. But a tremendous kavanah. Later they found out that Punkt then there was a bomb that fell in the Sinai where the Israeli soldiers were that could have killed Mamish Onashir mentioned. It was Mamish exactly at that time was Mamish Anes Godel that happened. And also, if I remember correct, I think it was by that Seder, the Rebbe Agaburcha, the pouring back of the wine, the Kesh Shaliyahu, was a thing which is beyond understanding. I mean, this is maybe you read about it. There's no videos of it. The Rebbe used to take the Kesh Shaliyahu, pour it back in the bottle. Says you add a little wine, you pour it back in the bottle. That's what most people do. But the Rebbe poured from the bottle into the Kesh Shaliyahu into the Rebbe's Becher, back Kesh Shaliyahu, then back into the bottle. I'm not telling you a specific Seder because nobody knows the Seder. And then it was back into the Kesh Shaliyahu, back to the bottle by itself. Then the Rebbe took from the tetzel that's underneath that the wine was there, poured it into the Kesh Shaliyahu, then went back into the Rebbe's Becher, back into the bottle, back from the bottle, hin and tzarik. Maybe 50 times it went back and forth like this. 50 times. It's mind-boggling. 50 times. And to some Bachrim, I remember that once and for all, they're going to crack the code, they say. They're going to find out what's going on over here. So they prepared a whole bunch of different colored papers. They had a blue paper and a red paper and a yellow paper. From one was Kesh Shaliyahu, one was the Rebbe's Becher, one was this, one was that. They get right in the head. They gave a lot of papers. No one knows what's going on. Trust me, didn't figure it out. And I don't know if every day was even different. I couldn't remember exactly the Seder. It was mamish. You see, it's an Aveda. What's the Chashom game? And people seeing Keliyato, and the Rebbe's back and forth. The Rebbe's bottle, the Rebbe had a bottle of wine. The Rebbe kept it on the floor. The Rebbe always took care of himself. Nobody served the Rebbe the wine. The Rebbe served the wine himself. And Bakesh Shaliyahu, hidden tzadik. And then, after Keliyato, the Rebbe said, "Soll singen, so sagt dem Nigen Yeshia Samecha." The Rebbe said, "The Welt meint, dass nicht in Lubavitcher Nigen, es Lubavitcher Nigen, sagt Yeshia Samecha." That was right in the beginning. That was the song for the Yerushische Yidden. It was brought in, Ram Lida brought it in from Israel. It's not an original Lubavitcher song. That's what the Rebbe said. The Welt meint nicht Lubavitcher Nigen, es Lubavitcher Nigen. Okay, machen Zeit ist kurz. Ja, okay. I'm just ending with ein Sach. Weißt du, aber ich endig damit rechnen wegen dem, sag ein Stückel hier. This one, we were in Kelul, might take 2 minutes, interessante Ringen. We were in Kelul, the Rebbe said, Tov Shalom et Gimel, that we should make mafteches on the Tzemach Tzedek's memorim. So each Chaver Kelul got one sefer. I wrote up 3 klolim. If it says the word Atzilus, you don't have to put it in. 3 klolim, what to put in, what not to put in. I sent it into the Rebbe. The Rebbe added a 4th klal. So he's ma'asher the 3 klolim. But the Rebbe was gestupt. But the Rebbe did something had to come out right away. And the Rebbe wanted to do Mechanan was going on. And Rebbe Hagadah called in the people on the... Oh, okay, good. Okay, Andik. Okay, good. Andik in the... Ensure in the... Good.
Good. We're never going to help clean up. You're already 20 minutes behind.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, let me just end it in those. So, Akaponim, Rabbi Chaduk called in the Vad. He asked, when to sein fertig? They told him, if you're Aleph Nissen. So, good. A few hours later, he calls back and he says, the Rebbe will wissen, welchen you're Aleph Nissen. Which you're Aleph Nissen. And make the long story short, I wrote up the whole thing and I put it on the wall in the Kelul. A few days later, the Rebbe came to the Kelul. A ganze Parsha, Zayden used to stay in the Kelul. Zalmi Yafeh, the Rebbe told me to check it out. And Kanamok in the Hariches. The Rebbe comes down from the steps and I put on the Medois. There's Medois in a Kelul. They're selling baby carriages or renting, whatever they want. And then this Medois that I had. The Rebbe came down. He went over to the Medois and he reads this letter that I wrote. And in the middle, the Rebbe starts laughing, because I wrote over there, the Rebbe had gefragt, welchen ihr Aleph Nissen? So the Rebbe read it himself. So the Rebbe hat geholfen, auf welchen ihr Aleph Nissen, sonst darf man warten, bis ihr Aleph Nissen, das Mamisch, so send the Rebbe, to get all the matter, wo you go in, to take me out Mamisch. L'chaim.
Thank you very much. There's
a lot more to say, but
the Kohen said, Yosef and Masha Karossi, the Fenecha Kosov Khan. The Mr. Shebe is Damnos, Rabbi Minkowitz will continue. Now you'll know to bring with him, because like I said, he took us there. There's a bus that's going to the oil, to the Tzina Kuf. I'm president in Kingston. And they will help him, some of these guys, I feel far, Yidal of Nissen.